The door was locked from the inside. The window was sealed. And yet the man inside was dead. If you enjoy intelligent detective stories where every detail matters, subscribe to the channel and hit like. This investigation begins with a lie disguised as a perfect crime. Detective Thomas Hale arrived at Rowanwick Square just after dawn, when the city of Ashford still wore its morning fog like a mask. The townhouse at number 17 rose from the mist with quiet authority, pale stone, narrow windows, and a brass knocker polished to a mirror shine. Nothing about it suggested chaos. That, Hale had learned, was usually the first warning. A butler admitted him without ceremony. The interior smelled of beeswax, old books, and something faintly sweet, an aroma Hale noticed without yet understanding. He followed the man up a broad staircase to the second floor where a solid oak door stood ajar. "The study," the butler said. "We forced it open an hour ago." "Why?" Hale asked. "It was locked from the inside, sir. Bolted." No response. Hale stepped through. The room was large, orderly, and unnervingly calm. Floor-to-ceiling shelves lined the walls, packed with leather-bound volumes and glass cases holding artifacts from distant places. Carved idols, jeweled daggers, fragments of stone older than the city outside. At the center stood a heavy desk of dark wood. Behind it sat Edward Langley, antiquities dealer, private collector, and increasingly paranoid recluse. Dead. His head had fallen slightly to one side, eyes open, unfocused. One hand rested near a crystal glass containing dark red wine. On the blotter lay a brass key placed neatly, almost ceremonially. Too neatly. Hale crouched beside the chair, studying the body. "Rigors set in," he said quietly. "He's been dead at least 6 hours." "No signs of disturbance," the butler added. "No forced entry, windows untouched." Hale scanned the room. The fireplace held dying embers. The curtains hung heavy and still. The rug beneath the desk was perfectly aligned, except for a faint dark curve near the edge, barely visible unless you knew where to look. A scorch mark. Movement at the doorway drew his attention. Clara Langley stood there, composed and pale, dressed in mourning black despite the early hour. She was 30, perhaps younger, elegant in a restrained way that suggested discipline rather than grief. "Detective Hale," she said evenly, "I assume you'll want to ask if my husband took his own life." "I'll want to ask everything," Hale replied. "He collected rare substances," she continued. "Poisons, extracts. Dr. Mercer believes the death could be self-inflicted." "Does he?" Hale said softly. A man appeared behind her, Jonathan Reed, Langley's personal secretary. His collar was crooked, eyes rimmed red, hands clutching a folder too tightly. "This is incomprehensible," Reed said. "Mr. Langley was under strain, yes, but—" "Strain often hides motives," Hale replied, his gaze drifting back to the desk. Beside the wine glass sat a small velvet box. Open. Empty. "What was kept there?" Hale asked. Clara hesitated. "A vial recently acquired. Dangerous." "I don't know." Hale leaned closer. The faint sweetness returned to him. Floral, wrong, he straightened slowly. This room claimed it had sealed itself. But Hale already knew one thing for certain. Someone inside this house had planned for the door to lie. Detective Thomas Hale kept the study door open and the household close. If the room was a stage, he wanted every actor in the light. Clara Langley stayed near the window, hands folded as if she were holding herself together by force. Jonathan Reed stood beside the desk with the rigid posture of a man protecting paperwork more than grief. Dr. Victor Mercer hovered near the fireplace, his medical bag at his feet, gaze flicking anywhere but the dead man's face. Hale let the silence work for him. "Mrs. Langley," he said, "tell me what was in the velvet box." Clara's eyes narrowed. "Edward called it the copperhead stone, a ruby or something like it." Reed swallowed. "He acquired it 9 months ago." "From where?" Hale asked. "A broker in New Orleans," Reed said. "The seller used intermediaries. No real name." "And before that," Reed hesitated, "a disgraced researcher, Marcus Vellum. He vanished from academia after an illegal dig in India. That's what the broker claimed." Hale watched Clara's face for a reaction. There was one small, fast, and hidden. "Your husband kept it in that cabinet." Hale nodded toward the glass case across the room. "Yes," Reed said. "Locked. He only removed it last night. Said he needed to study it alone." "Alone," Hale repeated, glancing at the bolted door, the untouched window latch, the neatly placed key. "Yet someone argued with him after 9. Reed stiffened. "I don't know what you mean." Hale opened a drawer and pulled out a bundle of telegrams bound with twine. One was tagged Southern PORTS. He selected the newest and read it aloud. "Paid in blood. Debt not closed. Next collection soon." Clara's composure cracked. A quick inhale, a blink too slow. "You've seen this," Hale said. Reed nodded reluctantly. "He showed it to me. He pretended it was nonsense." "He didn't pretend with me," Clara cut in. "He stopped sleeping. He started locking this room earlier. He began hiding things in the house like a man expecting a siege." Dr. Mercer cleared his throat. "Stress can present as paranoia." "Stress doesn't send telegrams," Hale said. "Who else knew about the stone?" "Everyone knew he collected," Reed said. "Not everyone knew what." Hale leaned toward the wine glass. The faint sweetness rose again, floral, wrong against leather and smoke. "Do you smell that?" Hale asked. Mercer's jaw tightened. "Old wine." "It isn't," Hale said. He turned to Clara. "Do you wear jasmine?" Her expression sharpened. "No. It gives me headaches." "And you, Mr. Reed?" Reed shook his head too quickly. "No." Hale's gaze drifted to Mercer's bag. The doctor shifted as if to block it, then stopped himself. "One more thing," Hale said, lifting the key on the blotter without using it. "Edward kept a spare key, didn't he?" Reed blinked. "He might have." "Find out," Hale said. "Now." Reed backed away like a man leaving a courtroom. Hale's eyes returned to the fireplace. The curtain hung too close, the scorch mark too fresh. Someone had been careless under pressure. From the hall came the soft shuffle of staff gathering, and Hale knew the next layer of truth wouldn't be in artifacts or telegrams. It would be in the people who heard the house breathe at night. Detective Thomas Hale left the study and followed the quieter pulse of the house. Crimes like this rarely confessed under chandeliers. They whispered in corridors, stairwells, and service halls where no one believed themselves important enough to matter. In the servants' dining room, Mrs. Eliza Crow, the housekeeper, stood rigid beside a long wooden table. Her gray hair was coiled tight, her hands red from years of work. She had the look of someone who had seen too much and chosen, until now, to say very little. "You were on duty last night," Hale said. "Yes, sir." "After 9. "Yes." Hale studied her face. "Did you notice anything unusual?" She hesitated just long enough to confirm his instincts. "I saw someone near the side garden." "Who?" "A figure," she said carefully. "Small, wrapped in a dark coat, the face was covered." "A woman. I thought so at first, the way they moved, light on their feet." "Which direction?" "Toward the gate, away from the house." "Carrying anything," Mrs. Crow swallowed. "Something wrapped in cloth, no larger than a book." Hale nodded. "Why didn't you report this immediately?" "Because this house has been tense for weeks," she replied. "Because the staff hears things, letters from abroad, Mr. Langley pacing at night, people whispering about curses and stolen stones. I didn't want to be dismissed as superstitious." Outside, the frost still clung to the stone path. Hale crouched near the side gate. The surface was disturbed, barely, but enough. The mark was narrow, too light for a man's boot. Someone had paused here, uncertain, then left. Above him, set into the study wall, were narrow iron ventilation grills, decorative, Victorian, functional. Hale leaned closer. One bore a faint pale residue. He touched it, smelled his fingers. Floral, sweet. Inside again, Hale intercepted Nora Pike, a young maid whose eyes darted like a trapped bird. "You were working last night," he said gently. "Yes, sir." "Did you hear anything after the study was locked?" Her breath caught. "Voices." Hale waited. "One was Mr. Langley," she continued. "The other was a man, angry." "At what time?" "Just after 9:30. "What did they say?" Nora shook her head. "I only heard fragments. Mr. Langley said, 'You're not taking it.' And the other man said, 'Then this ends now.'" Hale felt the shape of the room change in his mind. The study had been locked early. Someone had still been inside, someone with access. Upstairs, Jonathan Reed emerged from a corridor clutching a small notebook, his face pale. "There is a spare key," Reed said quickly. "Mr. Langley kept records of everything." "Where?" Reed hesitated. "I haven't found it yet." Hale held his gaze. "You will." As Reed retreated, Hale returned to the study doorway. The room still smelled faintly sweet. The curtain still hung too close to the fire. This wasn't a supernatural crime. It was a human one, planned, panicked, and sloppy at the edges. And someone inside this house had underestimated how closely it would be examined. By late afternoon, Detective Thomas Hale left Blackwood House carrying more weight than evidence. The locked room had given him atmosphere, not answers. But one name, repeated too carefully and explained too vaguely, refused to loosen its grip. Marcus Vellum. If the Copperhead Stone had entered Edward Langley's life through Vellum, then the truth had begun long before the study door was ever closed. Hale found Vellum in a decaying lodging house near Dockside Row, a part of Ashford where buildings leaned inward, and the fog smelled faintly of rot and salt. The landlord barely acknowledged Hale's presence, only nodding toward the staircase with practiced indifference. "Third floor, end room. Don't slam the door," the man muttered. Vellum's room looked less like a residence and more like a crime scene abandoned by time. Maps overlapped on the walls, pinned and repinned until the plaster was scarred. Crates overflowed with notebooks, broken stone fragments, and rolled sketches stained with age. At a small desk sat a thin man with sharp eyes and prematurely white hair, his fingers blackened with ink and dust. "Your police," Vellum said without turning, "which means Langley is dead." "You expected that," Hale replied. Vellum smiled thinly. "Men who steal from the ground eventually pay what they owe." "The Copperhead Stone," Hale said. "Tell me about it." Vellum's expression tightened. "It was never meant to leave the earth. We found it near an abandoned mining site in southern Karnataka almost 12 years ago. The locals warned us. Said the stone marked a boundary between what should be taken and what should be left alone." "You crossed it anyway," Hale said. "I was desperate," Vellum snapped. "Academia had destroyed me. I needed something undeniable. Valuable. People died," Hale said quietly. Vellum's voice dropped. 3 assistants, officially it was fever. Unofficially, he hesitated. "There was a vine near the mine, white blossoms, sweet scent. Its sap paralyzes the muscles before stopping the heart." Hale felt the pieces shift into alignment. "A jasmine-like toxin." "Yes," Vellum said. "Rare, difficult to refine. Easier if you have medical training." "Edward Langley possessed a vial," Hale said. Vellum nodded. "And he feared someone close to him. His last letter said he'd been betrayed, that the person knew his habits, his locks, his routines." "Did he name them?" "No, only that the danger was already inside his house." When Hale returned to Blackwood House, the sun was already sinking behind the rooftops. Clara Langley waited in the drawing room, hands folded tightly in her lap. "You went searching for answers," she said. "Yes," Hale replied, "and found reasons to doubt everyone." Her voice trembled. "Edward believed someone intended to silence him. He accused Jonathan Reed," Hale said. "He accused Dr. Mercer." She closed her eyes briefly. "He accused me as well." "And did you want him dead?" Hale asked. She met his gaze, steady but cold. "I wanted freedom, not murder." At that moment, Jonathan Reed appeared in the doorway, clutching a ledger as if it were a lifeline. His face was pale, eyes unfocused. "There's something you need to see," he said. "A payment 4 days before Edward died." "To whom?" Hale asked, though he already suspected. Reed opened the book and turned it toward him. "Dr. Victor Mercer." The entry was brief, clinical. "Consultation, discretion guaranteed." Hale closed the ledger slowly. The locked room wasn't hiding the crime. It was hiding the betrayal that made the murder inevitable. Detective Thomas Hale returned to the study alone. Dusk pressed against the tall windows, turning the glass into dark mirrors that reflected shelves, firelight, and the still figure behind the desk. The house had gone quiet in the way places do when they sense the truth drawing close. Hale began with the desk again. Edward Langley had been a man of systems, not habits. Everything in the room suggested careful planning rather than comfort. He opened a shallow drawer beneath the writing surface and found a slim leather notebook. Inside were precise sketches of keys, each numbered, each labeled in Langley's sharp hand. Study, primary key. Daily use. Study, secondary key. Concealed. Hale exhaled slowly. There was always a second key. He scanned the shelves along the east wall. The books were arranged by discipline, not by size. Archaeology gave way to botany, then chemistry. One volume sat pushed slightly deeper than the rest, its spine worn smooth. Hale pulled it free. Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. It was heavier than it should have been. Inside, a narrow cavity had been cut through the pages. Empty. So the spare key was taken, Hale murmured. But not to open the door. He turned to the lock itself. The mechanism was old but well maintained. Hale tested it carefully. When closed normally, the bolt slid into place with a crisp click. Then he examined the strike plate. A faint scratch ran along the brass, thin, deliberate. Hale took a narrow blade from his pocket and applied gentle pressure to the latch. With patience, the bolt slid into position while the door remained slightly ajar. Once closed, it appeared locked from the inside. An illusion. No key required. Hale straightened. The missing key wasn't used to enter the room. It was taken to mislead whoever came after. His attention shifted to the fireplace. The velvet curtain hung close, too close. He drew it aside. The grate was dark, but warmth lingered. At the back, the ash was disturbed. Using a handkerchief, Hale reached inside and withdrew a small object. A velvet-lined display case. One corner scorched. The hinge warped. Inside lay the copperhead stone. It caught the fading light and reflected it back in deep, unsettling red, so it had never been stolen at all. Someone had knocked it from the desk, panicked, and hidden the mistake. A hurried mind made careless choices. Hale replaced the case carefully and turned as footsteps approached. Dr. Victor Mercer stood at the doorway, his expression controlled, his eyes flicking once, only once toward the fireplace. "You found something," Mercer said. "Yes," Hale replied. "Enough to ask better questions." "Edward was unstable," Mercer said. "Prone to fear. I advised him medically." "And financially?" Hale asked. Mercer stiffened. Hale continued calmly. "The toxin derived from the Carnatica vine doesn't kill instantly. Paralysis comes first. Panic follows. You knew that." "That's conjecture," Mercer snapped. "Is it?" Hale lifted the wine glass. "Alcohol masks bitterness." "You suggested suicide very quickly." Mercer said nothing. Hale stepped closer. "Edward realized you had replaced his vial. He confronted you. And when he did," Mercer's jaw tightened, "you ensured he could never speak." Silence filled the room, heavy and final. The locked room had done its job. Now it was time for the truth to do the same. Detective Thomas Hale gathered the household in the drawing room as night fully claimed Ashford. The lamps were lit, their warm glow softening the furniture but doing nothing to ease the tension. Outside, fog pressed against the windows, no longer hiding the house but framing it, as if the truth itself had decided to stay and watch. Clara Langley sat upright on the sofa, hands folded with deliberate precision. Jonathan Reed hovered near the mantel, pale and drawn, his gaze fixed on the carpet. Dr. Victor Mercer stood apart from them, arms crossed, posture rigid with practiced authority. He looked like a man accustomed to command and unaccustomed to challenge. Hale waited. Silence, he had learned, loosened tongues faster than accusation. "The locked room," Hale said at last, "was never the mystery. It was the misdirection." Reed's head snapped up. Clara's fingers tightened. "You were meant to stare at bolts and keys," Hale continued calmly, "to argue about windows and curses. Meanwhile, the real crime happened in plain sight." He turned first to Reed. "You were seen near the side garden just after 9, Hale said. "Mrs. Crowe mistook you for a woman because of your slight build, the fog, and the coat you wore. You were carrying something small." Reed swallowed hard. "I was desperate. I thought the stone might be my way out, Edward caught me before I even found it. He threatened me. And you fled, Hale said, empty-handed. But your panic gave us our phantom figure a convenient distraction. Reed nodded miserably. I didn't kill him. No, Hale agreed. You only added noise. Hale shifted his attention to Clara. You feared suspicion, he said. Your composure wasn't indifference. It was armor. Your marriage was collapsing. Edward accused you of wanting him dead, and you knew how easily grief could be mistaken for guilt. Clara's voice was barely audible. I wanted the truth to disappear. You wanted safety, Hale replied, not blood. Finally, Hale turned to Mercer. You recognized the toxin immediately, Hale said. The jasmine scent didn't confuse you, it confirmed what you already knew. Edward realized his vial had been switched. That's why he locked the study early. That's why he summoned you. Mercer's jaw tightened. He was unstable, paranoid. He was furious, Hale corrected, and threatening exposure. The payment marked discretion was your attempt to buy silence. Mercer's voice cracked. He would have ruined me, my career, everything. And so you acted, Hale said evenly. You brought your own extract. You administered it through the wine. You used a simple latch trick to fake the locked door. Hale stepped closer. And in your haste, you knocked the copperhead stone into the fire. You hid the mistake. You assumed the illusion would hold. The room was silent except for the ticking clock. You underestimated one thing, Hale said. Carelessness leaves patterns. At his signal, 2 constables entered. Dr. Victor Mercer, Hale said, you are under arrest for the murder of Edward Langley. Mercer did not resist. As he was led away, his eyes flicked once toward the study, toward the room that had almost saved him. Almost. Hale remained as the others dispersed. Outside, the fog was lifting, revealing the city in sharp lines. The illusion had failed. The truth had not. One part remained unresolved. Not how the crime was done, but why everyone had been so willing to believe the lie. The house was quieter after the arrest, as if Blackwood House itself had finally exhaled. Detective Thomas Hale stood alone in the study one last time, watching constables seal evidence and remove objects that had once pretended to be ordinary. Without the illusion of mystery, the room felt smaller, more human, less impressive. Edward Langley had believed intelligence and preparation could protect him. He cataloged dangers, labeled keys, documented toxins, locked doors early, and trusted the appearance of control. In the end, those habits had betrayed him. The man who knew his routines best had turned them into weapons. Hale moved slowly around the room, noting details that no longer mattered. The alignment of books, the spotless desk, the careful symmetry. Langley had lived like a man preparing for a siege that never came, while ignoring the enemy already inside his walls. He stopped at the desk and picked up the leather notebook of keys, meticulous, obsessive, a record of fear disguised as order. Langley had thought redundancy meant safety. Hale had seen it before. People who fear chaos often build systems so rigid they leave no room for doubt and no room for warning. Clara Langley stood in the doorway now, no longer composed, no longer armored. Her gaze drifted across the room as if she were seeing it for the first time. So that's it, she said quietly. No curse, no foreign vengeance. No, Hale replied. Just a man who knew too much and trusted the wrong person. She nodded, swallowing. Edward believed danger always came from outside, from strangers, from the past. Most people do, Hale said. It makes betrayal easier to dismiss. Jonathan Reed passed in the corridor under quiet supervision. He avoided the study entirely. Ambition had driven him to the edge. Fear had pushed him back. Hale doubted Reed would ever forget how close he'd come to becoming something he could never outrun. The copperhead stone was lifted carefully into an evidence container. Without firelight, its surface dulled, its menace fading. Stripped of myth, it was only a stone again. Valuable, yes, but powerless on its own. Hale had learned long ago that objects didn't corrupt people. Desire did. He paused at the door, studying the lock one last time. It still looked convincing, solid, reassuring. The kind of lock people trust without testing. The kind that makes a lie feel complete. Outside, dawn pressed gently against the remaining fog. Ashford emerged in clean lines and pale light, less mysterious now, but no less flawed. Hale buttoned his coat and stepped into the morning, already composing the report in his mind. The case would be written up neatly, the illusion explained, the mechanism documented, but Hale knew what would linger: not the poison, not the jewel, not even the locked room. What stayed with him was how easily everyone had accepted the lie, because it was elegant, because it was familiar, because it promised simplicity, and because it spared them from questioning the people they trusted most. If you enjoyed this complete detective story, subscribe and like. More cases are coming. And tell me in the comments, what detail gave the killer away for you first? The scent, the lock, or the missing key?